Hello and welcome to 2020 Census, Better Late Than Never. This is the first of our library's digital programming series, so thank you for attending and being a part of this group. We will continue to do a number of digital programming through the next little bit. Um, Upcoming next week, Monday, we're going to do a Grow with Google event, how to get your business online, which emphasizes the important skills that you will need to know to get any type of business online and ready to go in this era. You know, with everybody on stay at home orders, it's a great time to really up your business's online presence. This course is really geared for starters who need to learn how to, just kind of do the basics. We will have more advanced courses coming up about web development and social media tactics that will be part of our programming slate. A couple other library resources just to highlight really fast before we get started. The library is online and digital still during this time. We have a number of new digital resources that you can find on the library webpage. The URL is mountVernonWA.gov/library. Please do check us out. We have a number of digital titles, online videos from Hoopla, and great streaming music services as well. At the library website, you can sign up for a library card and connect with resources, even though we're not allowed to move around. So it's just pretty easy, pretty seamless digital experience for you guys. So do check that out as well. Another page I do want to highlight there is if you are stay at home and want to have resources for kids or children, we do have a fantastic youth services page that has recently put up that includes all sorts of different things that are available, including new library resources that we have geared specifically at stay-at-home educators and people just trying to fill in the gaps while the schools are closed. So with that, we will get started with our census event, and you guys can learn how to fill out the 2020 census. This course is really geared for people who have had trouble filling out the census or want to know sort of basic census questions answered. So we'll go through that right now. To start with, the 2020 census is really important for everyone, and it's a really good thing to do. In part because it's how the government determines what types of federal support the state gets, and again, what type of federal support Mount Vernon gets. In this time of COVID, that is especially important because it's how they allocate things like unemployment benefits and federal aid to a given community. So, we encourage everybody, even, those who generally don't participate in the government, to do the 2020 census. A couple of quick concerns that everybody has that I'll just quickly answer. One, is your census data going to end up in some sort of weird tracking thing that the government is doing? The answer is no. The census data is highly protected. In fact, other federal agencies can only get a very aggregated census data. And number two, it only really asks for your name and your ethnicity. It doesn't ask for any of those sort of sensitive questions that you may not want to give out. Why they need to collect names is just for the simple fact they do not want to have duplicate people reported on the census. And, by having name and location, they can weed out duplicate people. There's a lot of back end processing that gets done to have as big an accurate count as they can. So that's really important as well. Oh, to start the 2020 census, there are two ways that you can do that. You can either go directly to the census website, or you may have received a letter like this one from the federal government that gives you a cool census ID code. Um, when I received this mailing in my household, we didn't think it was official because it's like printed on the cheapest quality paper possible in this weird blue tone. It took us a minute to identify it as a census letter. If you did get one of those with a census ID, do actually save it because it will help you speed up your census process by entering in that secret code. It fills out your residential address and a bunch of other data so you don't have to work as much. But if you don't have a code, it's no big deal. And we're actually going to show you how to fill out the census not using a code today. So you can really, just do it from the basics. All right. So with that, let's get started on how to fill out the census. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can do your own census as you want, following along, or just by watching this video. So with that, here is the 2020 census page. The official URL that you need to go to start your census is 2020census.gov. Here you'll find a big button on the front that says respond to your census. You hit respond. And I don't know why this is, but they have a whole explanation page after you've hit respond before you actually start the questionnaire. And you have to click again here to start the questionnaire. Remember when I said some of you may have received a letter? Well, this is the place where you would enter that 12-digit code and get your address stuff filled out. But if you don't have a census ID, no big deal. You just click down here. I don't have a census ID. Because you don't have a census ID, you are asked this very basic question here at the beginning, which says whether you are from a US state, Puerto Rico, or somewhere else in the United States. It's really easy. You just click US state or the District of Columbia for everyone here in Washington. And then you enter your address information. Today, we're going to use the library address. You can literally use any place that you want that you actually live on the April 1st date, which was last Wednesday. So whatever residence you were in last, or this preceding Wednesday is the date that they want to generally capture in the census. If you do not have a street address or are homeless, you can also just click this box right here. I do not have a street address, and still report yourself as living in Washington State at this time. You then proceed on to the next step, which is to verify your address. If for some reason you didn't enter it correctly, you can revise it then, and you hit submit. Then you have to say who is filling out the census. So in this case, we're going to fill out that I'm filling out the census, and here's my work phone number. And so then you go next, and then you start your household question. So you hit start to begin that. The big question is how many people were living in that address at the census date on April 1st. In this case, we're going to go to, so you can see the basics of the form itself. Just know that the more people living in your household, the more steps your census will be to fill out. But please do record everybody in your household. All right. So the next step is to enter the additional names of the people living in your household. In this case, we're going to have an awesome person called Fake Person, who is going to also be a part of the census. And so we're going to continue. Then it asks you just to verify that you don't have additional people. You just go, no, there are no additional people if you've recorded everybody, or you can hit yes to add more if that's the case. Then there's just a basic question about home ownership. And there are 4 things you can record: owned by you with a mortgage, owned without a mortgage, rented, or you are occupying without paying rent, couch surfing, etc. during the census date. You're perfectly happy to record that way as well. In this case, we'll just do owned by somebody who has a mortgage, because that's the most likely scenario in census. For addresses or rent, it depends really on your community, but here in Mount Vernon, more people are in a house with a mortgage than are renting in our community. Then you have to select who owned the business. They use this information for housing information. You can select all the family members, some or part. In this case, we'll just say that I was the owner of the location that we did. Next, you have to just fill out a little bit of demographic information about each person. So you hit start. You have to answer a basic question about sex. And then you have to answer a question about birthday. So in this case, we're going to enter my actual birthday, which is March 15th, the Ides of March, 1981. The best year ever. I am 39 years old, so that auto fills in. For some reason, it says verify the age is correct. I have tried this form in about 40 different variations and it never gets the age wrong. So, it just autofills always on any device. The next, it asks if you are of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. In this case, I am not. And then we will continue. And then it asks for your race. One interesting thing to note about the race option here is that whenever you check any of the boxes that have a box underneath, you're also required to fill out the box underneath. Um, some people fill out a very specific background because they know their background. Other people use much more generic fillers for their background. In fact, many people just fill out their census with the word American as their origin or background beyond that. So feel free to put in whatever you think is appropriate for you. This is a self-reported designation. So, however you want to define yourself, that's great. It is sort of strange that they let you define your race however you want to define it, but you don't get to define your sexuality or other gender how you want it. But thus is the census. And so we just do our best. The important thing here is to count the person, not so much these other demographic questions. So, just fill them out as best you can and, continue on. The next part is to start for the next person those same demographic questions. In this case, the first question is the relationship to you. So opposite sex partner, same sex partner, married, unmarried, biological son, daughter, stepchild, grandchild, other relative, roommate, non-relative, whatever you want to define in these categories, you can. In this case, fake person is just an other relative because they are very fake. Face person sex is, we'll say female in this case because they are fake. And then you can give them a birth date of whatever you desire. Please do try to record accurate birth dates. They are the way that they really weed out if a person has been duplicate reported. So, do your best in that regard. In this case, because the person was just born a few days ago, they are 0. That's really the only strange way you can enter an age. So just FYI there. Then we're going to go ahead and answer this question about Hispanic origin. It's very interesting because if you do something like Colombian, you're still required to answer the question about race thereafter. So, just because you're of a Latino origin, it does not mean you've answered the race question. So you could, answer this question again. In a similar fashion. I just made up a cool kind of race there, but we will correct it to the correct one now. All right. And so that is how you answer the demographic questions. Pretty easy there. Then you just have one final question and you have completed your 2020 census. So the question really is there somebody else who usually lives at this place but was somewhere else on the date of the census? An example would be a person who is attending college, off on military assignment, in jail or prison, anything like that, so that they get captured as well. Because we're mostly sheltering in place. These people don't usually stay anywhere else. They're just stuck there at home. And then you answer your final question, which is to submit the questionnaire. Because we've filled out the questionnaire with fake data, I won't submit it here today, but that's the basics on how you do your 2020 census. With that, I will stop sharing. Do we have any other questions from the audience about the 2020 census? All right. Hearing none, that will conclude our presentation on how to fill out your 2020 census. 2020 census, better late than never. Thank you for participating, and thank you for doing your 2020 census. As I said, it is a really important part of our civic duty. The national count is used for allocations of all sorts of benefits. Here in the city of Mount Vernon, we can directly attribute tens of millions of federal dollars that have come into the city to support civic infrastructure projects, homeless housing, um, and various other benefits that we got because of our census data. It is also really important in the city of Mount Vernon to record that data because our population has changed quite a bit in the last 10 years. We're going to add almost 10,000 people to our population in this count versus 2010 census. So I really appreciate you participating in that. Also, I encourage everybody who watches this to share it with anybody who has not yet filled out their census because it is an important part of your civic duty. With that, I will let you guys all go. Thank you for again being a part of this webinar, and do look to the library website for any upcoming events that we have in the future. With that, I'll say goodbye. Bye.